Hi and welcome to the Watchman report, where we bring perspective to the news from a biblical standpoint. In this episode we examine the disturbing rise of anti-Semitism from a biblical perspective and discuss what the Christadelphian position is on the increase of Jew hate. Recent events such as the anti-Semitic chants heard and seen worldwide at Glastonbury just a couple of weeks ago, death to the IDF, and a disturbing resurgence of hostility towards Jewish people in general. From a Christadelphian standpoint, rooted in scripture, this trend is both morally reprehensible and contrary to God's purpose for Israel. Christians of all denominations must acknowledge the plan and purpose that God has with his chosen peoples that has been in place since the foundation of the world. The Apostle Paul, probably the most prominent and well-known preacher to the Gentiles, described his conviction and sufferings in his personal life due to his preaching, said this: "For the hope of Israel I am bound with this chain." So this being the standard, let's briefly dive into this hope of Israel and develop a clear understanding of what God requires from man in anticipation of Christ's return to the earth and the establishment of God's kingdom in relation to his chosen race, the Jews, his witnesses. So what is the biblical foundation of this hope? Well, it's God's covenant with Israel. The Bible affirms that God's promises to Abraham and his descendants remain irrevocable. Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 to 3, Romans 11 verses 28 and 29. Though Israel's disobedience brought temporary rejection, their restoration is central to prophecy. Ezekiel 37, Zechariah 8 verses 1 through to 8. Prophecy of Gentile opposition, scripture warns that in the last days nations will turn against Israel. Zechariah 12 verses 2 and 3 and Joel 3 verses 1 and 2 are some examples. This aligns with the growing anti-Semitism that we witness today. So even though so-called Christian nations and governments seek to oppose Israel, followers of Christ must reject all forms of racial or religious bigotry. Galatians chapter 3 verse 28 and Romans chapter 12 verse 21. Anti-Semitism contradicts the spirit of love and justice taught in the scriptures. Now, this does not mean that we should take up banners or protest and lobby governments. Far from it. Instead, we must ensure these things should not be accounted amongst us as individuals or communities of believers. Even our so-called Christian leaders do otherwise. But we must not. What are the modern manifestations of anti-Semitism? The chants at Glastonbury, "Death to the IDF," reflects a broader cultural shift where anti-Jewish sentiment is increasingly normalised under political or ideological pretexts. Such hostility often willfully and conveniently ignored historic and recent sufferings of the Jewish people, including, of course, the recent slaughter of over 1,200 on October the 7th in 2023, and God's enduring plan for them, but rather focus on the unintentional killing of civilians as Israel seeks to eliminate the terror group responsible for the atrocity, who incidentally are willing to place their own people in harm's way to protect themselves. So what should the Christian response be? Well, we would suggest firstly, pray for Israel. Believers should pray for the peace of Jerusalem, Psalm 122 verse 6, and the establishment of the kingdom on earth. Matthew chapter 6 verse 9 is the central theme of the Lord's Prayer. Secondly, reject false narratives. Christians must keep themselves from protest, acknowledging that God is in control of man's affairs and will perform his righteous will. Thirdly, proclaim God's ultimate plan is the hope of Israel's future redemption. Romans chapter 11 verses 25 and 26. This should motivate faithful witness rather than complicity in hatred. So let's bring our thoughts to a conclusion. Anti-Semitism is not just a social issue, it's a physical and spiritual rebellion against God's purpose. Christadelphians grounded in Scripture must oppose it while upholding the hope of Israel's coming restoration through Christ's kingdom. Now we're going to just mention a couple of Bible verses here to support what we've said. Genesis chapter 12 verse 3. God says, I will bless those who bless you and curse whoever curses you. Romans chapter 11 verse 26. All Israel will be saved. Zechariah 2 verse 8. Whosoever touches you touches the apple of his eye. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 31. And this is something that we should all take on board. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. So let's make sure we're on God's side and not man's. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and drop us a comment in the comment section with your thoughts. What do you think about the rise of anti-Semitism? Until next time, God bless. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop us a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought. Make sure you subscribe and turn on new notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. And remember to come back soon.